Hi, this is Zach May with the Bulletin Board Heroes here at Zach's Traders Cafe for Wednesday, the 11th of December. Starting off with the FTSE, which has fallen back towards the 50-day moving average, which was a scenario we were worried about. That was the 8220 area was the breakout point with the October resistance line that's become support. Now, RSI still above neutral 50, so ideally today's low at 82.48 marks the low, the latest pullback from the 8400 area, and we head higher. Best case scenario probably now by the end of next month, not the end of this month, is up to 8600. Worst case is that we've got a test down to the floor of the channel there at 8090, but ideally the 50-day line, which is still rising, as is the 200-day line, will stem any further loss. Moving on to the DAX, and here better performance than the FTSE, and here we've got basically a bull flag there at the higher level, so looks like a mid-move consolidation which could at least get us up to 20,800 on the top of that rising trend channel from this time last year. Worst case is that we've got to fill that gap down to just above 20,000 before heading higher. 50 and 200-day lines both rising, so looking pretty set fair there. Moving on to the Dow, and here still heavy with the failure at 45,000, and we were hoping that we would stay above the initial November resistance at 44,500, which looks like it won't happen, or rather it didn't happen, and the next level down really back towards the resistance on the way up at 44,000. Worst case here is that we've got to test the floor of the rising trend channel and the 50-day line towards 43,000, but probably if pushed, one would say 44,000 hopefully will be the low, given that it was resistance on the way up and on the way down back in November. Moving on to Bitcoin, which has distanced itself from the 100,000 level, although it's good to see that it's holding on that line there from the middle of last month. The line there, the uptrend line, 94,500, so above that, still looking for 102,000, hopefully to be hit by the end of this month. RSI's bounced above neutral 50 as well to stand at 59, so looking a little better than in the last couple of days. Moving on to gold, and here we made good on our push through the rising 50-day line, 2684, and are looking for a retest of the 2750 area, basically resistance on the way down in November, and also the resistance zone in the latter part of November when we spiked. Best case scenario here is that we head up to 2860 by the end of next month at the top of that rising trend channel from back in February. Worst case is we've got to test 2600 again at the floor of that channel. Moving on to the stocks, and starting off with Castillo, or Castillo if you're Spanish, or that kind of thing. Here we've got a situation where the shares have been gapping up since the early part of October. We had a golden cross in the middle of November, and we made good progress, hitting the first target at 0.49, second target there now at 0.83, and looking for that well before the end of this month, while we remain above the floor of the gap there at 0.6. Ideally, we stay above the top of the gap, 0.63. Good to see Cadence heading higher as well, and recent news helping the cause in terms of a mapper, and here we were already gapping up. We had 2 or 3 full starts there in November, but it's this month where the shares have taken off, and we've got a rising 50-day line as well. We've broken a line of resistance from back in March at that level there towards 2.6 pence, and above that we're looking for up to 4 pence by the end of this month. Moving on to stock which is also recovering well, and it's Ferro-Alloy with the V-shaped bull flag, as I call it, rising 50 and 200-day lines that were going to a golden cross. Unfilled gap to the upside last week, and that suggests that still plenty of gas in the tank for the shares to head up to 11.5 pence with the boost from the carbon black substitute that the company seems to be very enthusiastic about. Upside value while we hold above 7.75 on Ferro-Alloy. Moving on to Gfinity, which has been always a slightly challenging situation, but here we also have a V-shaped turnaround, and on the second part of it now, initial target here was 0.034, the second target is up to 0.065, and we're looking for that perhaps as soon as the end of this month, with the key here staying above that old target, 0.035. Moving on to Landore, which has been a decent market in the recent past. Nice little breakout through 4 pence, and above that, looking for the top of that rising trend channel from this time last year. That's currently heading for 6 pence, which is what we're looking for here by the end of next month. We've got the 50 and 200 day lines both rising in parallel, which is a good look from a charting perspective. Moving on to a stock which doesn't normally get looked at here, Man Group, but couldn't resist this one with the multiple bounces of the RSI at neutral 50 over the last month. So probably arguably 4, maybe even 5 bounces for that RSI above neutral 50. So we've broken a line of resistance there from August at £2.11, and above that looking for up to £2.35 by the end of next month, maybe by the end of this month as well. Ideally, we stay on the right side of that 50-day moving average at 207 in the meantime. Orcadian is next, and deserves something of a medal, given that it's in the North Sea, and that's really tying with Ed Miliband's strategy at the moment. Here you can see that we had the sideways shuffle and a rally, and now we're looking to do the same thing with the 200-day line that we did with the 50-day line. So sideways shuffle along the 200-day line at 8.6 pence, and looking for 13 pence by the end of this month. Probably the real trigger would be, or the best trigger here would be, the 200-day line starting to rise. On to Premier African, where I know that some people on X are willing the company to fail, but at the moment, I suppose, if one ignores the fundamentals, which is rather difficult to do, on a technical basis, we've got a sideways shuffle above a rising 50-day line. The initial target here at 0.058 was hit, has been hit a few times. Above that, let's call it above 0.06, looking for 0.09, maybe by the end of next month, although it's difficult, obviously, to work out what would give the stock that kind of boost, but upside, or at least a recovery in prospect while we're above that rising 50-day line, although obviously at any time things could change with the fundraise, etc., etc. RSI has also bounced above neutral 50, which is another positive, and if you didn't know it was Premier African, you'd probably be rather more enthusiastic about it than the current situation suggests. On to another stock which is not normally included here, but interesting to note that while companies are leaving the UK stock market in droves, one of the recent listings is doing rather well. I think we saw the W-shaped pattern at the lower end of the range near £3.60 a while back, or at least breaking that 50-day line. Current situation is that we've got both the 50 and now the 200-day line rising, so that suggests we're going to a golden cross. The initial target here, £4.64, and obviously after that, looking for the initial high that the shares put in at £5, and that could happen by the end of this month, especially while we remain above yesterday's resistance of £4.20 on an end-of-day close basis. Interesting to see that Renalytix is turning around, or trying to turn around after a rather rocky ride in the recent past. Here you can see we're rising above a 50-day moving average, or rising above a rising 50-day moving average at 7.7 pence. Initial target here, 10 pence. Obviously, the next level up after that, up to 11.5. But really just noting the turnaround here while we are above recent resistance at 8.25. On to Sound Energy, which I've just interviewed earlier this morning, and a very upbeat sounding Graham Lyon. But current situation on the chart is that we're grappling with the 200-day moving average at 0.86. Above that, looking for up to 1.07 by the end of this month. And ideally, we stay on the right side of November resistance at 0.8 pence in the meantime. Covered TinyBuild a few times as well in the recent past, and it looks as though we are on our way with the initial target there at 6.83 pence. Next level up is up to 8.5 pence, hopefully by the end of this month, especially if we start getting the 200-day line rising, suggesting we're going to Golden Cross. But if you look at the second half of November, very, very strong candles there, either sideways or up. On to the last two. The first one is Victoria, and here you can see that we've had a rebound within that falling trend channel there. Nice gap, unfilled gap to the upside today. So we're looking for 84 or 85 pence at the top of that falling trend channel from back in May. Hopefully we'll get that by the end of this month. Ideally, there's no end of day close back below yesterday's high at 58 pence in the meantime. Finishing off with Zanaga, where it looks as though one or two psychic, telepathic, and or otherwise very enthusiastic people were getting into the stock in recent days. We gapped up on the on the 2nd of December, and we had an RSI rebound at neutral 50 on the 9th. The target here now up to 6.9 pence, while we're above 5 pence. So let's see if Zanaga can go a bit higher. There's a gap to fill there at 7.25 for those who are keen. That's it for me today. More updates tomorrow.